Madden 27 has officially arrived, and it is time to choose your franchise team. With so many options, it can be a little bit overwhelming, but in today's video, I'm going to help you narrow that down. First up, starting out with one of the youngest teams in the NFL, it's going to be the Tennessee Titans. The Tennessee Titans are one of the few teams on this list that are actually going to have a long-term franchise quarterback, and that franchise quarterback is former number 1 overall pick and the most disrespected number 1 overall pick ever in Cam Ward. Cam Ward was honestly excellent at times last year. He was much better than the stats sheet would show, and on top of that, he was much better than the play calling and talent around him. He made some truly remarkable plays. Decision making was pretty well there. Just, again, the play calling was really bad for Tennessee last year. But within the game, he is a star development 75 overall quarterback. He's going to have some pretty good stats, 82 speed, 91 throw power. And if you do play the games and you're less of a slow sim guy, he has one of the best throw motions in the entire game. Now, the Tennessee Titans don't have the most true cornerstone building block, just established players out of anybody in the league, but one that they do have is going to be Big Jeff Simmons. In my opinion, the best interior defensive lineman in football. Jeffrey Simmons has been absolutely fantastic. He is wrapped up for the next 5 years under contract. He's in the prime of his career, 95 overall. All of his stats are absolutely fantastic. Jeffrey Simmons is a great way to start out a rebuild. The Titans also have plenty of excellent young talent, starting off with Carnell Tate, their first draft pick in this past season out of Ohio State. The only thing holding Carnell Tate back from being a true number 1 in college was the fact that he was playing next to essentially Julio Jones in college. One of the best receivers that we've seen in Jeremiah Smith, but Carnell Tate is absolutely no slouch. He does a decent job at separating. He's an all right route runner, and he has fantastic hands, reliable, good, big target. Then the Titans went out this offseason and signed the best slot receiver in football in Wan'Dale Robinson. He's going to come into this game with excellent route running, excellent agility, and really, really solid speed. He's going to be the highest overall player on offense for this Tennessee Titans team at an 84, but he is better than the stats show. He's a fantastic building block in the slot. So you've already got 2 receiver spots out of the 3 that you're probably going to have lined up on the field already filled. Then you come out and you've got Alec Iomanner and Shamari DK. Both of them very, very young, drafted in the year prior, and they're both really, really good. A little bit of a battle in camp to see which one of those 2 is going to be the stand. And then onto the defense, another first-round pick by the Tennessee Titans in this past cycle. They actually traded back into the first round to be able to pick Keldrick Falk. 6'6", 280-pound freak. The thing is, he has to develop as a pass rusher. So as you're getting upgrades throughout your rebuild and your franchise, applying them to make him a better pass rusher, which was really the main knock on him coming out of Auburn. He's an excellent run defender. He just needs to develop a pass rush plan. The year prior, he was actually a solid pass rusher, just kind of seemed to get lost on him, or maybe it was just kind of the issues with Auburn. Either way, a freak of nature. Lastly, for the young absolute standouts, we have Anthony Hill Jr. out of Texas. Hook 'em from my favorite team. Anthony Hill is a player that I absolutely loved at Texas. He's excellent in coverage for the most part. 6'2", 240. He's a very secure, strong tackler. Moves well in space. He's not the world's greatest coverage linebacker that we've ever seen. He's not like safety ability playing down in the box. So that is his area that he probably could improve in. Plus, he's not an excellent blitzer, but he is a really good player, and he statted out very well for Madden. Hidden development trait, probably star development. Who knows? It could be superstar. It's probably star. Coming in at a 72 overall, great speed. If you're into using linebackers, Anthony Hill is going to be really fun to use. The biggest area of improvement that I actually see that you can make happen early on in your rebuild, whether it be draft capital, free agency, whatever it is actually going to be the offensive line. You start out with J.C. Latham, Peter Skronsky, and then the potential of Fernando Carmona out of Arkansas. Even though he's a 24-year-old rookie, I think he could be pretty good. Here's the thing. Dan Moore, Schlottman, Volson, they're not very good. Tight end, you're going to need somebody better than Gunnar Helm, I assume. He's got potential. Hook him. Love Gunnar Helm. But up front, the guys that are going to be sticking their hands in the dirt, you need some major improvement. J.C. Latham and Skronsky, like I said, both really good. But you do need to rebuild the offensive line. And then you need to come back down to the running back room. And Tony Pollard, sure, he's a great guy. He's not a bell cow running back. He's more of like a receiving back, third down back kind of guy. He operated his best when he was with Dallas and he was a third down back. Now he has been carrying the rock for a while as the primary back, but it's just not the role that you want somebody like Tony Pollard in. So I would offensively focus on the potential of a running back and rebuilding the offensive line. Defensively, there's a lot more work to do. I'm not in love with the linebacking core outside of Anthony Hill, and I'm not in love with the defensive line outside of Jeffrey Simmons and Keldrick Falk. The secondary, yes, could use some work, but it's not the biggest area of concern on this defensive unit. What I would personally do is free agency and draft. I would look for another dominant pass rusher to go alongside Keldrick Falk and another guy maybe in the mid rounds to go alongside Jeffrey Simmons. Solomon Thomas is probably a 1-year deal. And then if you really want more defensive help after that point, I would try and get another corner in the room and another safety. Now diving into cap space and contracts, the Tennessee Titans are not in a bad space when it comes to either of them. They do not pay a lot of money to a lot of random guys like you're going to see with some of the teams on this list. They have $53.5 million to spend. The expiring contracts come down to guys like Tony Pollard, Jermaine Johnson as a potential pass rusher, Solomon Thomas, Tony Adams, just a lot of depth pieces and your starting running back. The only contracts I would prioritize getting off the books is Calvin Ridley. Calvin Ridley is somebody that is going to stunt the growth of these other receivers in the room like DK or Carnell Tate, Alec Iomanner. These guys all have a future. Calvin Ridley only has a past at this point. I also would try and package up John Franklin Myers somehow, some way. He's pushing 30. He's making $15 million a year. It's probably not the worst contract in real life to be able to give a guy like John Franklin Myers, but in the game, with his overall normal development trait, he's going to have to ball out to ever be near $15 million a year, which leads me into draft picks. Tennessee Titans are going to have pretty standard draft capital. It's just their 1st through 7th round picks for the first 2 years. They're all projected to be pretty good, and I think actually playing the games, you won't struggle that bad with the Tennessee Titans. This is more of a fun, relaxed, let the team develop, draft your guys. You don't have to spend a boatload in free agency. It's one of those kinds of rebuilds where it's not major urgency. You're just letting the development happen, and you maybe make a few moves, make it a little bit more interesting. Next up, we are headed up north to the New York Jets, a team that is surprisingly much better than you would think. Now, the Jets have the obvious, like a Garrett Wilson that you already know as that dominant number 1 receiver. He comes into the game, 86 overall, really good route running, very agile, good speed. He's going to be a fantastic player, and he is under contract. You're also going to know the do-it-all back in Breece Hall, somebody that can catch the ball out of the backfield, run with the best of them. He's going to be very, very fun to use as well. And he's very young, 25 years old. That's a big theme with this Jets team is a lot of these players are very young. They have a really bright future. That's like the first time I've ever said that about the Jets. The defense is where it gets a little bit older. You look at a guy like Minkah Fitzpatrick, who is 29 years old, and if you are truly down to embrace the suck early on and just maximize your draft capital, this is somebody who could field an absolute haul. Now, if you're a little bit more, how do I put this, immersive and you want accurate trades and whatnot, Minkah Fitzpatrick probably doesn't go for the most in the world in real life anymore. But if you're down with Madden logic, you could probably get a back end of the 1st round pick or maybe, a 2nd, a 3rd, something like that for Minkah Fitzpatrick. But if you do want to use him, he's going to be a fantastic captain of the defense, star of the defense, superstar talent. And we move into another player that is in a highly similar mold to Minkah Fitzpatrick because he is older. Now, Minkah is 29. He's not super old. But in Madden terminology, Minkah's kind of old. 28 is the age of regression in Madden, if you weren't aware. Demario Davis is about 10 years past that age of regression. So I wish they would tweak with the regression slider. It is what it is. But Demario Davis, 37 years old. If you're down to embrace the suck, this is somebody that's going to be worth a decent amount in a trade to be able to package for some younger players or more draft picks. 37 years old is very old for a linebacker. It's very old for anybody in the NFL in general. But a physical position like linebacker, health becomes a concern. There are a lot of causes of concern for Demario Davis. But on field, on paper, he's actually an excellent linebacker. He has been for the entirety of his NFL career. So you could let him ride off into the sunset with you, or maybe move him for some of that capital I was talking about. Now, I know we're talking about the true highlights of this roster, but David Bailey honestly falls into that category. He comes in at an 81 overall, one of the top 5 highest rated rookies in Madden 27, which kind of surprises me because people were having him mocked at like 7 and 8, 9 in the process. And they're like, he's, not the super high upside pass rusher, which I do think that he is. He comes in the game with almost 90 speed, 91 acceleration, good finesse moves, solid enough power moves, block shedding, tackle, all that. It's getting there. Obviously, he's a rookie. He's not going to be perfect. Hidden development, if he's a top 5 rookie in the class, I'm going to assume is going to be superstar or higher development. So this is somebody that is going to be a cornerstone, just a building block for years to come for this Jets franchise. Now, what's not a cornerstone or building block of this franchise is going to be the quarterback position. You started off with a player like Geno Smith. Geno Smith finally wrote back and he said he wants to come back to the Jets. He comes in pretty decently statted out, but he's 35 years old. He's way past the point of regression. He's only a 72 overall. He's just really never going to be that great of a quarterback within Madden. You could start Geno and embrace the suck, or maybe try and win a few games. Could mess up your draft capital in the process because he can definitely win some games with the offense around him. Or you could go with the young rookie in Cade Klubnik. Cade Klubnik comes in with 92 throw power, 48 awareness. He's a complete moron, apparently, from EA Sports. 83 speed, a much higher physical upside when it comes to arm and speed than Geno Smith. Cade Klubnik is honestly who I would start if I was doing a Jets rebuild today. Overall, he's pretty accurate. Again, the arm strength is a big thing for me. Guys with like low 90s throw power is kind of the standard that I like to start in this game in a rebuild. Anything below 90 throw power, I'm not a big fan of. But Cade Klubnik, he could absolutely have a future. You start him for the first year, and maybe you do really well with him. Then you can stick with Klubnik, and you don't even have to use one of your draft picks on a quarterback. And there's no shortage of offensive talent surrounding Cade Klubnik or Geno Smith, whichever one you decide to go with. At the tight end position, Kenyon Sadiq is an absolute physical freak. 6'3", 240 pounds, 91 speed. He's basically Travis Kelce, but faster. Because Travis Kelce, he can block and he will get in line and block. So they're not the exact same type of player, but Travis Kelce has built a name off of being essentially a mismatch slot receiver. That's exactly what Kenyon Sadiq is, because he has the speed of a true slot receiver, but he's 240 pounds and he's 6'3". So this is a fantastic talent. Somebody that I'd be very, very excited to use in the franchise. Then you have Omar Cooper Jr., another first-round pick. Yes, they had 3 first-round draft picks this year. They had like 5 picks in the top 40 or something. They just had an excessive amount of draft picks in this past year. And well, something I'm about to tell you in a few seconds, they've got a lot of draft picks this year. Omar Cooper Jr., he's the receiver that made that incredible catch versus Penn State to win the game with Indiana. He's fantastic. He profiles as a really solid number 2. I don't think he's going to be the definitive number 1 receiver for this team, but you never know where the franchise world and development cycles are going to lead you to. However, he does look very good. Route running, pretty solid. If I was going to focus anywhere with my upgrades on Omar Cooper, it would be improving him as a route runner. And then talking about the offense as a whole, the offensive line is excellent. They have a very young offensive line. Outside of going for a center, you have one of the better offensive lines for the future. Armand Mimbu was legitimately an offensive rookie of the year level talent, and he probably should have won it, but he's an offensive lineman, and, the voters don't know anything about that. Armand Mimbu was fantastic. Olu Fashanu is also very, very good. Dylan Parham, not bad. Joe Tippmann, again, not bad. Myers, it's probably not your ideal center, but that could be something you look towards, is getting a center. Then you come over to the defensive side of the ball, where things are a little less fun. You've got Andre Sisco starting at safety. You got Brandon Stevens, Jarvis Brownlee, Nashawn Wright, Will McDonald as a pass rusher, Harrison Phillips, and my big boy, Tavondre Sweat. Hook 'em. So they've got some decent players here. I mean, Will McDonald and David Bailey absolutely could be a really good pass rush duo. With Tavondre Sweat up the middle, then you don't have linebackers behind that because Demario Davis is not going to be here for the long haul. And then you've got a secondary that can't hold up outside of D'Angelo Pons. If he was 6'1", he would have been a top 5 draft pick in this past cycle. This is somebody I would be very excited to develop. Problem is, you're probably really going to have to run him as a slot corner because he is small. He's 5'9", 180 pounds, but he has excellent speed. His cover ability isn't the world's greatest in the game, but again, he's a rookie, so he's going to develop. D'Angelo Pons, I think, is fantastic and will be a building block for years to come. The Jets are also another team that is pretty good on cap space. They do have a lot of dead cap. They moved off of Quinnen Williams and Sauce Gardner in the at the trade deadline, actually. So they moved off of them, so obviously they're going to be eating some dead cap with that. But they haven't really signed anyone to just absolutely egregious contracts to where you're like, wow, this sucks. Then the expiring guys, Harrison Phillips, David Onyemata, Andre Sisco, Tim Patrick, Nashawn Wright. Guys that are not going to be the most impact players for your team. A lot of depth guys throughout that are not going to be re-signing with the team. So that leaves you wide open to spend some money. Spend money and use draft picks, that is. The New York Jets have 3 first-round picks. If you're looking for an introduction on how to get good and understand franchise and how to understand scouting and all that kind of stuff, the New York Jets are absolutely the team to choose. 3 first-round picks. They've got the one from Dallas, which is technically a best of Dallas or Green Bay, but I don't think that's going to be coded in by EA. So it's going to be the Dallas Cowboys pick. And then you've got the Indianapolis Colts from the Sauce Gardner trade. You got a second, a third, a fourth, a fifth, and 2 sixths. So they have some of the most draft capital out of anybody in this entire game. Next up, we're going to have the NFL's dumpster fire, the Cleveland Browns. To start off simply with the Cleveland Browns, all of your building blocks are realistically going to be on the defensive side of the ball. Players like Denzel Ward, who has been an elite, one of the most underrated corners in the NFL pretty much since he stepped into the league. He's been fantastic. He's statted out really, really well here in Madden, and he's going to be really nice to use within your franchise, automatically giving you a lockdown corner for a few years to come. Unfortunately, yes, he is around that 29 years old mark, so that is going to mean regression potentially could hit him in the near future, but he is under contract, and this is probably somebody I would still look to build around. Then you head over to the defensive line, and you've got Jared Verse. Now, the way that they acquired Jared Verse is the only thing bad about him. They sent away maybe the best defensive player in NFL history to acquire Jared Verse. They were not going to be able to keep Myles Garrett, so getting a player of the caliber of Jared Verse back for Myles Garrett automatically is a big win, but he is really, really good in the game. He's much younger than Myles Garrett as well, so you could essentially turn him into your new Myles Garrett. I mean, probably not going to happen in real life, but within the structure of Madden franchise, I'm sure you can make that happen. And he statted out really well. He's very fast. His acceleration is really nice. Power moves, finesse moves, all really, really good. And he's an 88 overall, 25 years old, superstar development. Hasn't even hit that first big contract yet. So this is somebody that you're going to look to extend and just be a dominant force for you for the long term. Paired up next to him on the defensive line, you're going to have Mason Graham. He was their top 5 draft pick from just a year ago, and Mason Graham has been pretty fantastic. Other than that picture of him throwing up at training camp in his first year, Mason Graham has been pretty fantastic. Superstar development trait coming in at an 80 overall, really solid speed, really solid strength. You just kind of need to work on a pass rush win style move for him in your franchise, and you have automatically one of the best interior defensive linemen within the game. Mason Graham, I think, is fantastic, and he is a building block to go alongside Jared Verse on this defense. Continuing with the theme of defense, because the Browns legitimately do have a good one, you're going to have Carson Schwezinger, Defensive Rookie of the Year. He was absolutely fantastic last year for the Browns, and I expect that to continue this year, especially in your Madden franchise. He's going to have really good speed, really, really solid tackler. Coverage is not the greatest, but that's something that you can work on for the future with Carson Schwarzenegger. You automatically have 4 elite potential players on your defense. That's an excellent start. Where that starts to fall off for the Cleveland Browns of looking really good is the quarterback position. If you've been following the Cleveland Browns for any duration of time in the last 20 years, you know they can't get the quarterback position right. But in Madden franchise, you have the opportunity to be able to do that, whether it's drafting a guy or going with one of the guys that they already have on the roster. Starting off with Shedeur Sanders, who a lot of people think is going to be the starting quarterback for the Browns this year. And if I had to put money on it, he probably will be. Shedeur's not bad. He's statted out okay in Madden. He's accurate, lower arm strength. It could be the guy of the future for you. He probably wouldn't be for me. I mean, normal development trait, 24 years old, just going to be really hard to get a guy like this up in overall. But I'm not saying it's not doable, and he is a fun story and a very fun name. Then if you have no morals, you can go with their backup or potential starter for this year, Deshaun Watson. He's statted out nearly identical to Shedeur. Only problem is he's 30 years old, and he's on a gigantic contract right now, and it is expiring. This is the last year of his deal, so you can take the trash out and just release him if you want to. You're going to incur a penalty, but that money will clear up at the end of the season because unfortunately they did sign him to a fully guaranteed contract. Lastly, in the quarterback room, we're going to talk about Taylon Green. This would be my pick if I was starting a Browns franchise today. Taylon Green is a physical freak. The thing with Taylon Green is he could be a bottom 5 player to ever start at the quarterback position because he has deficiencies in accuracy that it held him back from being a highly drafted pick because he has some of the best physical tools that have ever been shown off at the quarterback position. He's got 92 speed. He's 6'6", 230 pounds. If you go off of his 40 time and just arm strength, he is Calvin Johnson that can throw a football 75 yards. That's what Taylon Green is, and that's the kind of player you could have if you can develop him within franchise mode. So I think he's one of the biggest secret weapons to Madden franchise this year. I'm going to put out a video on players to trade for in Madden franchise, and he's going to be right there at the top of the list. Because if you play the game like a lot of us do, having a mobile quarterback helps. Having one that has a good arm helps. He has both of those. The only thing is he is dumber than a doorknob. 26 awareness, but that is going to allow him to get upgraded to a pretty high overall very quickly because the only thing that is dragging his overall down is the awareness. Now, another beauty about the Cleveland Browns is they have some of the best young talent in the league. I'm not going to say best as in like they're the best players, but they have an extreme collection of young talent. You start off with Quinshon Judkins, an excellent running back in the backfield. Dylan Sampson, an excellent number 2 running back. KC Concepcion, who they just drafted. Denzel Boston, who they also just drafted. Spencer Fano, Zion Johnson, Elton Jenkins, who I think is a fantastic offensive lineman, very underrated. Tevin Jenkins, who you're going to have to re-sign. He could develop a little bit. He's not too high in the overall arc right now, but he's not super old. You got Titus Howard, who I don't know that he falls in the youth class, but he is here. Then you've got Harold Fannin Jr. So you have building blocks all across your offense. So depending on who you are really targeting, who is getting the reps, who is getting the stats, that will decide how this team is really going to develop because it is just a landscape of players that you can just develop. They're all super young. But you flow over to the defensive side of the ball, and it is much older outside of the building blocks I talked about with Denzel Ward, Jared Verse, and Mason Graham. You've got Quincy Williams, he's whatever. Grant Delpit, he's got an expiring contract. He's, kind of whatever. Tyson Campbell, expiring contract as well. So just kind of a whatever thing. And then at safety, you've got Emmanuel McNeil-Warren and Ronnie Hickman. So you do have some pretty good players. The youth on this team really stands out on offense, a very young offense that you can build, grow with, draft best player available because everyone's replaceable because they're not really super high overalls at this point, which that would lead to the cap space that this team has available. Only $16 million. Somebody like Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, I'm pretty sure he had to technically medically retire in the offseason, so maybe he will be off of the cap in a little bit, but Deshaun Watson is the big cap casualty. And then you look at a guy like Jerry Jeudy, somebody that I would move off the team personally and get the young receivers more reps. And then after that, you have no egregious contracts anywhere on this roster. The Deshaun Watson one was atrocious. But outside of that, you're not spending money on really anything. And then you have the dead cap from the Myles Garrett trade that is incorporating into that $100 million in dead cap. So after a year or so, you're going to have some of the most cap space in the entire NFL with probably the youngest offense in the NFL. That then can be paired with an excellent pool of draft capital. You're going to have 2 first-round picks from the Myles Garrett trade. You're going to have a second, a third, 3 fourth-round picks, which, again, they're very, very, very valuable. You're going to see in some of the rebuilds that I upload and some of the experiences you're going to have playing by yourself. Mid-round picks are really, really good this year. And then you got 2 fifths, 2 sevenths, and then in the next year, you get 2 second-round picks. Overall, an excellent amount of draft capital for the Cleveland Browns. This is a really hard team to pass up for a rebuild. The only thing that could really be a negative is rebuild fatigue. We've been rebuilding the Browns since pretty much all of us have been alive. Next up, we're going to have the most total rebuild in the entire video, and that is going to be the Arizona Cardinals. Now, you get to a team like the Arizona Cardinals, who I think are going to be the worst team in the NFL in this coming season, and you are met with a surprise. They have Trey McBride, a 99 overall tight end. Yes, this is a rarity that you're going to come across when you're rebuilding any of these lower tier considered rebuilding teams. Trey McBride is a 99 overall tight end, one of the best tight ends in the NFL. I personally wouldn't have given him a 99 overall, but maybe I'm stupid. Either way, that's all besides the point. He's only 26 years old. He's only been in the NFL for 4 years. I'm pretty sure they just locked him up on a contract extension. So this is going to be somebody that's going to be around for the duration of your rebuild. So you finding another quarterback and having a guy like Trey McBride to be a reliable target makes this an excellent option for a rebuild, and he is statted out really, really well. He's very fast. His route running solid. He's not the best blocker in the world, but if you just have to teach a guy to block, I think we're good. Then that leads us to the defensive side of the ball. You're going to have one of the best safeties in the NFL over the last 4 or 5 years. That's going to be Budda Baker. Yes, of course, his career highlight is getting hawked down by DK Metcalf. That does hurt, but Budda Baker being here on the defensive side of the ball is extremely helpful, because if you're playing the games, obviously he's going to be a very good player. He has been an incredible player in real life. But if you are buying into the full rebuild, the trade value of Budda Baker is probably a back end of the first round pick. And this team needs a lot of help. The needed help is especially going to shine when you look at the quarterback situation. You've got Jacoby Brissett, who I believe they just re-signed in real life. I mean, he's just kind of whatever. The problem with Jacoby Brissett, he's 33 years old. He just never is really going to develop at this point in his career. He's just too old for, MVP level play to just spawn out of nowhere. He comes in with 90 throw power, really good accuracies, solid enough speed. He is a perfect stopgap, just bridge quarterback, and that's all he really is ever going to be. So then you make it to their 3rd round draft pick and future NFL Hall of Famer Carson Beck. He played fantastic in the Hall of Fame game. I'm not going to call him a future Hall of Famer, but after what he's been through with Georgia and some of his bad games that he had with Miami, it was really nice to see him play extremely well in the Hall of Fame game for the Cardinals. Yeah, it was backups on backups. It was whatever, but he did look really good. So maybe you want to buy into that immersion and start Carson Beck. That's personally what I would do if I was rebuilding the Arizona Cardinals. He is statted out okay in the game, but again, a complaint that I've had a lot in this video alone is the people who make the ratings don't watch these guys in college. Carson Beck has a pretty strong arm. He should be in the 92, 93 throw power range. His mobility should probably be a little bit lower if I had to be honest. His awareness, I would drop to 30. He's kind of an idiot sometimes. He has multi-interception games a lot. But either way, Carson Beck, I think, is a really fun immersion kind of experience to start at the quarterback position. And if it doesn't work out, that means you're probably going to be picking pretty high in the draft. Now, if we have to highlight young talent on this roster, it has to start with Jeremiah Love. Jeremiah Love, think of a Bijan Robinson style of a player. I don't think he's as good as Bijan coming out of Texas, but I do think Jeremiah Love is excellent. He's got 94 speed, 94 excel, 94 carry, 94 change of direction. Just give him 94 everything. He's fantastic at Notre Dame. He can break tackles. He can run by you. He can run through you. I mean, just everything you want in a running back. Jeremiah Love can do that. You can even split him out and he can catch the ball pretty well, which is represented a little bit in this roster, but not as well as he does actually catch the ball out of the backfield. And he's going to develop incredibly well. I think he's a top 2 rated rookie in the game. Him and Caleb Downs got the 82 overall marks, if I'm not mistaken. And Jeremiah Love looks absolutely fantastic. He's going to be very fun to use in the game. And then if you're talking about youth, you cannot skip over Walter Nolan. You automatically have a cornerstone, just centerpiece on your defense. You just have to apply the pieces around Walter Nolan. He's fantastic. He comes into the game with superstar development, 78 overall, 6'4", 300 pounds, only 22 years old, and you're going to have about 3 years left on his current contract. So you got plenty of time to build the roster around him before you're going to have to sign him to one of those mega extensions, because now diving further into the roster and where I would actually build around is going to be this offensive line. The Cardinals actually have a pretty good offensive line put together. You just really need to focus on the right tackle spot. You've got Chase Basantis, Hajalti Froholt, Isaac Seumalo, and then Paris Johnson Jr., who they drafted like 2-3 years ago, who is a fantastic left tackle. You put a right tackle on this team, pair that with Jeremiah Love, by year 2, that's a guy who could be rushing for 1,600 to 1,800 yards. Where this offense does need work is going to be the receiver position. Marvin Harrison Jr. becomes a big question. What do you do? This is somebody that was supposed to be a generational level talent at the receiver position, but it just hasn't all worked out for Marvin Harrison Jr. He hasn't been the worst on the field, but he doesn't separate extremely well. He's had struggles with drops, but he has had really good games where he has flashes of what he was supposed to be. So do you buy into that and try and finish the development of Marvin Harrison Jr.? Because on the other side of Marvin Harrison Jr., you have your true number 1, which is going to be Michael Wilson. 6'2", 215, unfortunately is on the final year of his contract, but he's an 81 overall. He's statted out nearly identical to Marvin Harrison Jr., so maybe you develop Marvin Harrison and you send Michael Wilson off for a collection of draft picks or younger players that you can help build the roster around. It's your playground. It's up to you, whatever you want to do. I personally would be re-signing Michael Wilson. Then we make it to the defensive side of the ball where it gets a little less fun, and why I say this is the most total rebuild of all the teams in today's video. It's just kind of a graveyard of talent. You've got a player like Will Johnson, who's only 23, and I think he's going to develop and become really good. You've got Zaven Collins, who you need to re-sign, and I think he is pretty solid, but he's not elite. You got Josh Sweat, who was disgruntled with the situation in Arizona, finding out they were going to go into a rebuild, so maybe this is a guy that you move on from as well. And then you've got Garrett Williams, Sean Murphy-Bunting, Andrew Wingard, which you'd never want starting at safety, Jack Gibbons, Mac Wilson, Cody Simon. It's just kind of a graveyard of older players that aren't really that good. They're just viable. So it becomes a total rebuild. Though the rebuild does become a little bit easier when you look at the contract situation with the Arizona Cardinals. They've got about $36 million in cap space. You look at the expiring contracts and you run into guys like Hajalti Froholt, Michael Wilson, Mac Wilson, and then James Conner. You're probably not bringing back a lot of these guys outside of maybe Froholt and Michael Wilson. Maybe you entertain the idea of bringing back Zaven Collins, but he is getting a little bit up there in age to truly develop. Then you can also entertain the idea of taking somebody like Budda Baker off the books. You're really not going to get penalized for it too much, and you probably would have a good haul in draft capital for trading a player like Budda Baker. Then taking a look at the draft pick situation for the Arizona Cardinals, it's just all the standard draft capital that you would expect them to have. They don't have any extra picks, so that's why, again, I throw around the idea of maybe trading off a Budda Baker or trading off a Michael Wilson or a Marvin Harrison Jr. Rebuild that pick capital a little bit, because this is a team where you can genuinely just sit there and draft best player available for the next 3 years in the first round, and it really wasn't the wrong answer. They need a little bit of everything. Our last team on the list is actually going to be the most interesting, in my opinion. It is going to be the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, with the Steelers, I take an entirely different approach. This is a team that I think you should be pushing for the playoffs or a potential Super Bowl win in the first year, where the other teams are just a few years away from even being in any form of playoff conversation. If you look at the Pittsburgh Steelers roster, it's a lot of old players just diving through the ages here. We've got 37 for Cam Hayward, 31 for TJ Watt, 31 for Jalen Ramsey. Even the kicker's old. You go over to the quarterback position. Aaron Rodgers is 42 years old. This is truly a last ride kind of a team. And it is obviously the last ride for your quarterback in Aaron Rodgers. This is just an interesting situation. You've got a player like Aaron Rodgers who is fantastic. There is no denying that. And he's still going to be very fun and really solid to use in the game, but he's 42 years old. This is the end of his NFL career, without a doubt. He has stated that multiple times. So you have to transition some future Hall of Famers into a total rebuild. One of the biggest struggles of the Pittsburgh Steelers in real life is just going to be the fact that they spend a lot of money on the defensive side of the ball to older players. Jalen Ramsey, Alex Highsmith is like 30, TJ Watt's 31, Cam Hayward again 37, Jamel Dean is about 30 years old. So what this rebuild is really about is transitioning into younger and better talent. Where they do have some of that younger talent already on the roster is going to be the offensive line. Troy Fautanu, like 23 years old. Mason McCormick, he's like 25 or 26. Zach Frazier's like 24. Jennings Dunker, he just got drafted. And then Max Iannaccio also was just drafted. You even go over to the tight ends, Pat Freiermuth and Darnell Washington are definitely in more of the early-ish stages of their career. So across the board, you've got great youth on offense until you make it to the true skill positions. DK Metcalf, he's pushing 30. Michael Pittman is pushing 30. Rico Dowdle is pushing 30. So you need an infusion of youth on this offense, and you need a succession plan at the quarterback spot. One good thing is the Steelers may have drafted that succession plan in quarterback Drew Aller. This is another complaint of mine. Again, EA doesn't watch these players play because Drew Aller is not accurate at all. He literally looks like a complete idiot half the time. So 85 short accuracy with 90 throw power is the complete reverse of how this should be. He should have like 95 throw power and like 72 short accuracy. Because the biggest things he struggled with in college that held him out of being a potentially like top 5 level draft pick is the fact that he just doesn't reliably hit his receivers in the hands. The defense, however, is where I feel this is more of a total rebuild. You start out, and again, TJ Watt, Cam Hayward, Jalen Ramsey, Jaquan Brisker. You've got all these excellent players, some of the top at their positions in the NFL. The problem is all of these players are not going to be here within like 2 to 3 years. They will end up retiring. They will end up demanding more money, or they're going to start regressing and they're not going to be as good as they once were. So you need an infusion of youth very quickly on this defense. So you need to make one good playoff push while you have the unit intact and together, then be able to transition that into a future dynasty level team. The rebuild becomes a little bit more tough when you dive into the contract situation and some of the players that I honestly would move off from, so you can, transition this into the future of the Steelers, not the past of the Steelers. You start off, they only have $5 million in cap space. Cam Hayward is probably going to retire. TJ Watt is extremely expensive, so maybe you make a playoff push and, adventure with the idea of moving him. Jalen Ramsey is very expensive for a safety at $17.5 million. Alex Highsmith is where I think you should start your trades, however. Reason being isn't Alex Highsmith at all. It's actually Nick Herbig, who is sitting right behind him as the backup edge rusher. Nick Herbig has the same superstar development trait. He's 24 years old instead of 29 years old, and he has a similar physical profile to Alex Highsmith. So if you can move a contract like Highsmith off the books and pay a much cheaper, lower overall, younger guy that can develop into exactly what he is, I think that's one of the best decisions you can make. The team does have a few egregious contracts. DK Metcalf, while I think he is really good, $31 million a year is very expensive for your number one receiver, who I don't think is just a full-on, oh my goodness, wow, number one. Then you fall into your number two, who I actually think is the number one. That's going to be Michael Pittman. He's getting about $20 million a year to pair with that. You have $50 million a year tied up into two receivers that are never going to be the top of the league or a top duo, top of their position group. So it's a rough, weird contract situation. Then you dive into the players that you need to re-sign. You've got a guy like Joey Porter, who I think is excellent, who's going to need a new contract. Pair that with Jaquan Brisker, who I also think is excellent, needs a new contract. Then you have Asante Samuel Jr., who I think has plenty of potential still. Lastly, Patrick Queen, because you really don't have a true force at the linebacker position, unless you can really get the development started with Peyton Wilson and maybe move him to the Mike linebacker position. 92 speed, 87 hit power, just a physical freak at linebacker, 6'4", 240 pounds. He would be my succession plan to a Patrick Queen, but it's not his primary position, and he hasn't really developed so far in the game specifically. At a 75 overall, it is going to be a hard overall to bring up, especially at the age of 26 years old. Then if you dive into the draft capital that the Pittsburgh Steelers have available, they've got a first, a second, a fourth, a fifth, and 2 sevenths. It's nothing major, but it raises a big question. Do you embrace the rebuild immediately and say, you know what, we're not winning a Super Bowl in this first year, in this final year of Aaron Rodgers, and you start moving some of these players like an Alex Highsmith, maybe a Cam Hayward, maybe a TJ Watt? I know that flows out of the world of realism. The TJ Watt thing has been discussed in real life from what I know, so maybe that isn't too far out of the scope of realism. But do you discuss moving off guys like that and preparing for the future? Or do you just sit with the draft capital that you have and then just start shuffling best player available as these guys start coming to your desk and let you know that they are retiring?